Very cool. Is it time now for? Is it time now?
We've been live for a few minutes now. Go ahead. What time is it?
Hey kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait.
It is time for Gezintahait. That's great. Mendel, tell Labe to turn his amp up a little bit. For the next nigga.
Turn your amp up a little bit.
The story tonight is called The Light of the Luminary. The previous Rebbe once told a story that he heard from his father, the Rebbe Rashab. Now, this is a story, a true story from a Rebbe. He described how his father, the Rebbe Maharash, once took him along on his travels. So the Rebbe Rashab went traveling with his father, the Rebbe Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash led the Rebbe Rashab to the realm of heavenly supernal palaces. At one point, the Rebbe Maharash ascended to higher levels, where the revelations would be too intense for the Rebbe Rashab. While waiting for his father's return, he noticed a chamber from which an especially bright luminary was shining. He went to investigate and saw a Jew who at first glance was not on a level to dwell in such an exalted abode. When the Rebbe Maharash returned, the Rebbe Rashab asked, how was it that a Jew on that level could have merited such a great reward? The Rebbe Maharash answered that truly he was a simple Jew, but he was fluent in a book of Hasidus called the Tanya. Having learned it so many times that he knew it by heart. Our Rebbe says that we can learn from this story that even when one does not understand the explanation of Chassidus, when he learns that the light that is found in the palace of the luminary is shining for him. But he's sitting there with closed eyes. He's seeing without knowing with what he's seeing. And he's hearing, but he's not understanding. The remedy is to learn it in a way that he clearly understands and grasps its meaning in order to reach a level of open eyes and open ears. And the way to accomplish understanding is through effort in opening the mind to receive, simply to apply oneself, putting in the effort necessary to understand the teaching of the Rebbe. As it says in Pirkei Avos, that if one does not work, and he says, I didn't work, but I succeeded, don't believe him. In addition, there is an extra advice to give charity, physical charity and spiritual charity, through which the mind and the heart will be purified 1,000 times over. So even the guys who aren't listening to what I'm saying will be able to get something out of it. And the next short story I'm going to tell is going to illustrate that. The Rebbe Marash used to use two different expressions when he would speak about teaching Chassidus. Sometimes he would say Zagen Chassidus, and sometimes he would say Reden Chassidus. The Rebbe Rashab, his son, realized that his father was very exact in his speech. And he asked him, please explain to me why you use these two different expressions. The Rebbe Marash answers that when he says Reden Chassidus, means when those who are hearing the explanation are appropriate vessels to understand and utilize the teaching. When he says Zagen Chassidus, on the other hand, it means those who are not fitting vessels to understand and utilize the teaching, like our guys here who aren't listening. Nevertheless, the Torah lesson would eventually have its effect on them or on their children or even their grandchildren. According to our Rebbe, we can learn two things from this answer. One, how precise and exact is every move and expression of a Rebbe. In general, and in particular, everything a Rebbe tells a person. And two, the greatness of Zagen Chassidus by a Rebbe, even though at the time the teaching is heard, it's apparently not internalized or even grasped externally by the listener. But we must say it's actually received and internalized. The proof is that years or even generations later, the person who heard, or his son, or his daughter, or even his grandchildren, will be affected by the teaching. The reason is that the Rebbe's Torah is not just an ordinary piece of information that goes in one ear and out the other, like material going through a funnel. When a Rebbe delivers a Hasidic discourse or talks to someone, it represents a godly idea that becomes essentially embedded in the one who hears it. It dwells within him. Regarding Torah, the prophet Jeremiah says My word is like fire. Just as fire purifies, the Rebbe's words not only purify and clarify the subject, but also the listener. Yet sometimes its effect is only apparent years or even generations later. Do you guys want to do a niggin for us now? I just want to tell you something that tonight, it happens to be the head of the month of Adar, the month that Purim is in. And this month we increase in simcha every day, we increase in happiness. And happiness comes when the secrets are revealed. And secrets are revealed through wine. And through the wine of the Torah, the secrets of the Torah and the secrets of godliness are revealed. And since we're in a month like that, tonight we're going to reveal a very, very, very hidden secret that almost no one knows. Even masters of Kabbalah don't know this secret that we're going to reveal tonight. And the secret is that how is it that Hashem is able to connect with something outside of himself? Should we have a niggin first, or should we go straight into the secrets? By the way, in the old days, in the ancient times, these secrets were not allowed to be revealed, only to special people and only one at a time. But in the time of the Rizal said that not only we should reveal these secrets, it's actually a mitzvah to reveal these secrets. That's how I know that it's safe to do it. So Mendel, are we going to have a niggin, or I should keep talking for a while?
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a. Ah yeah.
And hey, Mendel, we should have a Purim niggin tonight sometime.
So this part.
Well, as
So is this part?
yeah, don't screw it up.
Okay, no. Okay, is it part? Is part?
Salil, as it just so happens, we have a pudding niggin for
Oh!
you.
Oh!
Woo-hoo! Bye, hippie man, yachash v'yish, oh, yachash v'yish, hippie man, yachash v'yish, oh, yachash v'yish. Ah, he's gonna complain too quiet.
Very good. Very nice. Mendel, please tell Wade to turn up his amp a little bit. We spoke last week about the chain of descent of the world and why it's called a chain. And just in a fast way to go over, it's called a chain because, like any chain, it's made of many links. And the chain of descent of the world has 50 times 50,000 links. And like in any chain, the bottom of the upper link is connected to the top of the lower link. And when the top link is shaken, the message goes down, it ripples all the way down to the lower link. And not only that, the lower link is the intention of shaking the upper link. And when the lower link is shaken, there is a chain effect that it goes all the way up through all the links and it reaches up to the upper one. And here the upper link is the level called Malchus of Ein Sof, the kingship of the infinite one. And the lower link is us. And when Hashem wants to affect us, he shakes the top link, so to speak, and the ripple effect gets down to us, and that's what he wants. The beginning is wedged in the end. And when we shake the bottom link, when we do what he wants, the message goes up through all 50 times 50,000 links, all the way up to Hashem himself, and he gets nachas and pleasure from what we did according to what he wants. But what we're going to talk about tonight is the level before the whole chain. The level of the infinite light, how it is in itself, which is completely separate from worlds of any kind, from the chain at all. It's just a revelation of infinite light. And this is the secret that almost no one knows, that a lot of people know that there was the infinite light that was taken away so there could be empty place for the existence to be. But almost no one knows before that taking away of the light, which the taking away of the light is called the original contraction, the original symptom. Almost no one knows what happens before that. They just know the infinite light was every place, and Hashem contracted it and left an empty place for the existence. But tonight, we're going to understand something of the godly and divine chronology of how Hashem in himself, before the original contraction, prepares for what is going to take place in the empty place. The time before the contraction of the infinite light, there was only Hashem and his name. It's funny because there was only the name and his name. And the explanation is before the contraction, there were two levels. There was one alone called Yachid, Hashem alone and nothing else. And two, there was a one, that's scary, Morty. There was a one that was a composite of parts. The first level, one alone called Yachid, describes how Hashem is totally alone. He's totally separate. And he's essentially exalted in himself. And it's designated, it's called, the king ascends, taking pleasure in his own essence. The second level of echad, the second level of unity of one, is when Hashem desires to do good by being a king. So you see, there's two things that are combined to be one desire. I want to do good. How will I do good? By being a king. That's called chesed and malchus. For those experts, chafetz chesed and ana emloch. I want to do good, Hashem says, by being a king. And that's called echad, a one that's included in parts. And we can understand all this from a metaphor of a teacher and a student, a Rebbe and a Talmud. The essence of the Rebbe's intellect is higher and removed from outflow through teaching, because the nature of intellect is to think to oneself deeper and deeper. Nevertheless, the Rebbe has the ability to teach. And that's called the ray that is nullified and hidden at this point in the essence of the teacher. Why? Because he's not thinking of teaching. He's going up and up in his own intellect. Even though he has the ability to teach, it's not revealed at all. Like a ray of the sun in the flame of the sun. It's like it doesn't exist. The object of the metaphor of this hidden ray is Hashem's ability to create and emanate worlds. When Hashem is going up and up in his own essence, that ability is not revealed at all. And that ray is included in the essence light, how it is back to our metaphor, his Rebbe's ability to teach is included in his intellect, but it's so nullified it doesn't even have a name at that point. But if the Rebbe is a naturally kind person, and the object of the metaphor by Hashem is called the nature of the good one. And therefore, the teacher, the Rebbe, wants to do good to his student because he's a kind person. He wants to let the student know the truth. And that natural kindness produces a desire in the teacher and the Rebbe to teach. And this desire causes that ray, which is ability to teach, to be revealed from its hidden state in the essential light of the Rebbe's intellect. And now it exists outside of the essence of the Rebbe's intellect. He reveals the fact that he has the ability to teach. It causes a descent from the essence light of the intellect, which is not connected to teaching, to dress itself in the teaching. And the power to teach and what will be taught become a garment for the essential light of the Rebbe's intellect. But the power to teach and what will be taught are not defined at this point. We don't know what he's going to teach yet. Similar to the essence light of the intellect. It's not connected to a teaching. It needs to be contracted to draw down a mere glimmer of the intellect of the teacher, like a particular divine subject, a point to teach according to the vessel, the ability of the student to receive. The rough metaphor that I use for that is that the mathematics teacher realizes that mathematics is an infinitely predictable algorithm. But he can't come into a second grade class and tell that to the class. He comes into the class with 4 apples. And he says, see, kids, here's 2 apples, and here's 2 apples. How many apples are there? 4. Right, 2 and 2 is 4. Therefore, we see the power to teach has 2 levels. One, which is brought down to the student. That's the 4 apples. And the second, which stays hidden in the essence of the teacher's intellect. By Hashem, that's called, I want to do good by being a king. The do good stays connected to the essence, and by being the king, goes out to connect with the people. And even if he teaches him much in many different ways, higher and higher levels of teaching, of learning, nevertheless, the essence of the teaching remains hidden in the essence of the Rebbe's intellect. So we see from the power to teach called the ray, 2 levels are revealed. There's a light and a ray. That which remains hidden in the essence of the teacher's intellect is called the light, and that which is drawn down to the student is called the ray that goes out. But the Rebbe's desire to teach, remember, if he's a good guy who wants to teach, includes and encompasses both levels of light and ray, and is called the luminary. Like the lamp that includes a light and a ray that goes out. But the essential light of the Rebbe's intellect, how it goes up and up and up into his own intellect, like he is experiencing himself, is not even called a luminary. It's not called a lamp which shines. So we have 3 levels, a lamp, a light, and a ray that shines. And a 4th level, which is the essence of the intellect, which is not even a luminary, it's not even a lamp that shines, it's just the Rebbe going up and up into his own intellect. And we can proceed deeper to understand how it is on the supernal level that through the metaphor, we can understand on the supernal level through the metaphor of the sun, which is called in Torah a luminary. The sun is like a lamp, which is a light, which shines a ray. And that refers to the sun's descent to illuminate the world, and it's called a luminary. So there's 3 levels, like we said. There's the ray that shines to the world. There's the ray that stays hidden, called the light. And then there's the essence of the body of the sun that shines, which is the luminary, because it encompasses the light and the ray. But the essential spiritual body of the sun, like it is before it contracts to descend to light the world, is called a higher essential light, like the essence of the teacher's intellect, which does not shine out. It's an essence light. And that's what's described in Psalms, where the sun is called a light, not a luminary. So we see there's 4 levels in the light of the intellect. If you have patience, we're going to show how this works with Hashem before the contraction of the infinite light. There's the essential light of the intellect, which is not even a luminary to shine out. But it does include in it the power to teach, which is completely nullified before he wants to teach. It doesn't even have a name at that point, like of the ray of the sun in the flame of the sun. And then you have where it descends from its inclusion in essence, the ability to teach descends, and it now manifests 3 levels, a luminary, a light, and a ray. Now we'll be able to understand the object of the metaphor in the divine chronology that takes place before the original contraction of the infinite light. Hashem is initially separate from outspread and revelation of light until the point that you can't even call him infinite. Like they say, the infinite one. The infinite one, you can always, you're talking about some kind of a source of revelation. But how Hashem is in himself, the king ascends into his own essence, cannot even be called infinite because there's no outshine at all. Because the designation infinite indicates an outspread, like it says, the infinite light effulges infinitely. Its outspread is infinite. Therefore, the one who generates the light is infinite. But higher than generating light, you can't even call Hashem infinite. He's completely separate from any kind of description. But the essence of the godly energy, the light, is not in the category of outspread or revelation at all, and therefore it's not called infinite. It's exalted and separate from spreading out, like our teacher who's going higher and higher in his own intellect with no thought of connecting to another. And by Hashem, that's the level called Yachid, the level called one alone. And actually, Hashem is absolutely alone before the outflow and after the outflow, and therefore he can't be designated with the name infinite because he's essentially higher and separate from any outspread, even an infinite outspread. But he does reveal that he has a quality of infinitude. How? By shining the infinite light. But in him, there's a whole bunch more than he's revealing, than the fact that he's infinite. And this level of Yachid is the essence light, which is not yet a luminary to a light. Gimel Aleph, do you get that? The level of godliness that is not even a lamp, it's not even a source of shining out. So Hashem is holy, he's completely separate. But, like it says, there is none holy like Hashem. Hashem's holiness is different from all other levels of holiness below. Holy indicates above and separate. And even though he's separate from revelations of light, nevertheless, he has the potential and ability to reveal all levels of light. And that ability is called a ray that's completely unified in his essence. So completely unified that it's not even designated as unified. Like the teacher's ability to teach before he thinks of teaching, it doesn't even have a name. So this ray, Hashem's ability to do anything he wants, is not separate at all from his essence. You can't designate it as unified with him. It's not a separate thing. For example, you have a person, there's a person like me, and I have certain abilities, and my abilities are unified in me. But by Hashem, his abilities are not separate. It's not there's Hashem and his abilities. He is his abilities, and his abilities are him. And therefore, just as his essence light is not in the category to be revealed, so too his abilities can't be revealed. So how is it that we have a revelation of godliness? How is it that we have a world? It has this infinite quality that can't be revealed. So how is it that we have some revelation? So let's have a niggin first. The niggin will reveal to us on a higher level than any kind of intellect, and then we'll go back and explain it. How's that sound? Mendel, are you around? Is anybody listening? Can we have a niggin? Ay, 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 ay. Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Oh, Mendel. Can we have a niggin?
Oh, we sure have a niggin. Wait, time out. Let me get the singer. Let me get our star vocalist here.
By the way, Mendel, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There is a puppet who's saying he is the original Gimel Ella. And he doesn't know who this guy is that's taking his place.
Well, let me tell you. This guy is fake news. Oh, oh, oh. Hey, are you gonna sing with me? Yeah, let's go. Hit it.
Okay.
Hey, ya, 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 da, 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 ya, ya, da, 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 ya, ya, da, 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 ya, da, la, 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 ya, ya, da, da, da. Hey, ya, da, 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 ya, ya, da, 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 ah, da, da, la, la, ya, ya, da, da, ya, ya, da, da, ya, ya, da, da, ya,
All right. So the question we were left with is, if Hashem's abilities are completely unified with him, and he is on a level where he can't be revealed because he's completely higher even than infinity, then how is it that there can be a revelation from him? And the answer is that there is a divine desire, that Hashem desires to do good. And since Hashem has the ability to do whatever he wants, then he can accomplish his desires. So he has a desire to do good. Like the teacher, if he's a good guy, is going to want to teach. And this is what we say about Hashem, that the nature of a good one is to do good. The nature of good is Hashem's ability, as it is included and nullified and unified in his essence. That's his nature, which is not on a level of revelation, and the actual doing good is revealed by the one whose nature is good, is revealed through this godly desire to do good. But that desire to do good has to be invested in a sub-desire, which is the desire to rule, the desire to be the king. The dynamic of good is called kindness. And even though it's the source of all outward revelation, nevertheless, it's possible it could stay hidden and be only in potential. But when the aspect of rulership, I'm going to do good by being a king, reveals the godly desire to rule, then the power of revelation becomes manifest to actually reveal godliness, to spread outside of the essence. Why? Because you can't have a king without a people. So in order to be a king, he needs a people. So there has to be an outflow of godliness. Not so kindness, not so goodness, in which the heart is prepared to share the kindness, even when there's none to share. But kingship, there has to be a people to rule over. And these two divine desires to do good by being a king are the light and the ray which shine godliness outside of Hashem's essence. Through the desire for good, the existence of light is revealed. And its actual drawing down, the ray is through, I will rule by being a king. But the will, the desire, is the drawing down of the essence of Hashem to reveal these two levels. This, to do good by being a king, this is the luminary that includes both things, the light and the ray. And these three together is called echad, is called one, which is a combination of parts. Its echad is compared to yachid, which is one alone. And what draws these two things, I want to do good by being a king, from their essential hiddenness, is a godly desire that accomplishes them both together, and is called the luminary, which encompasses both the light and the ray. And since there will be an outspread through this lamp, it can be said that there is no limit. Now we can call him infinite. Ein Sof. And to understand in more exact detail the divine chronology and its development after the contraction, we just described what happens before the contraction. Hashem has a desire to do good by being a king, finally. But to explain how it's developed after the contraction, before the creation and emanation of worlds, before the original contraction, there was only, like we said, he and his name alone. The godly manifestation called he, we said it was he and his name, hu v'shmo bilvad, he and his name alone. The designation called he indicates the godly desire, which is called the luminary, which includes both aspects. The name, which is the light and the ray. To do good by being a king, that's the name. And the he is the luminary that includes both. It's Hashem's desire to connect. And these three levels of luminary, light, and ray, which is called he and his name, were revealed where? In Hashem's essence, which is called alone. He and his name alone. The he is Hashem's desire to connect outside. His name is the light and the ray. I want to do good by being the king. And alone, he and his name alone, and alone is he, his essence, where all this takes place. And that alone level is not even a luminary to a light. It's called alone. It's higher than being a luminary, a source of light. And even though his attribute of kingship is really included in his essence, like we said, the king goes up and up in his own essence. He's essentially a king, but on that level, he's exalted. He's not exalted over a people. And that's what he means. I'm going to do good by being a king. I'm going to be a king over people. And that includes his power to connect outside, actually. And nevertheless, if the outflow, connecting outside of himself through being a king of people, would be infinite, it would stay in its source. It would be infinite. How can he be a king of a people if there's infinite light? You couldn't have a people. To the point, it would not even have a name. Like the teacher's ability to teach before he thinks of teaching. There is nothing outside of the infinite light. Like the masters of Kabbalah express it, in the beginning, what would later be called the empty place, where it's empty of infinite light, was first filled with the light. So everything is infinite. You can't add nothing. Therefore, nothing could exist outside of it. The intention is that the power potential of the empty place to allow apparently separate existence was completely unified in infinite light. The infinite light was shining in that empty place. Then Hashem contracted. He pulled away the infinite light, and it seemed like there was an empty place. It was an apparent empty place remained. And in that empty place was an impression from before the light was pulled away. And from this impression was drawn down a line of infinite light. That's kind of contradiction in terms. How can you have a thin line of infinite light? It was called the Kav. And that Kav, that line, contained both the infilling and surrounding principles for the whole chain of descent, the whole 50 times 50,000 levels. And the infinite light before the contraction is called the upper purity, and the general light that surrounds the empty place is called the lower purity. The contraction of the light is not a simple pulling away of the light. leaving an empty place. And that's why we're cautioned, don't make a hole in infinite light. Like the Maggid of Medjid says, don't imagine there's an empty hole in the infinite light. Because the apparently empty place is not really empty of the light. It's just that the light's hidden from the receivers, so they could appear to exist separately and receive some revelation of godliness. Now, I have a rough metaphor for this, and it doesn't cover all the angles of how it works, but it could bring us close to be able to understand a little bit how could it be that there's an empty place which is not empty of infinite light. And my metaphor is when you have a magician doing a show, and the magician puts on a black suit, like a ninja suit, with a black hood and black gloves, and he stands next to a black curtain, and he lifts up the lady in the silver dress, and it looks like she's flying. But really, the magician never went away. He's just hiding so that we can enjoy the show. To understand the impression that's left in the empty place from before the contraction, the impression of the infinite that's left in the empty place, which is called the Rishimu, and also that line of infinite light that's drawn down from that impression, which is like a dot. It's a measured line of light that contains the potential and power to generate all surrounding and infinite lights in the chain of descent of the worlds. For example, 3 lines make a letter base, and 5 lines make a stick figure of a man. And from that line will be drawn down the original man, Adam Kadmon. In the way of a jump, all of a sudden, from a dot and a line comes out the original anthropomorphic godly man on the throne, which is even higher, more recondite than the crown of the world of Atzilus. You guys want to play a niggun? But first, he's called the general created man. Even though he's so high and recondite, he's the first anthropomorphic symbol of the godly man on the throne. He's still called a created man. He's the template for all the levels of supernal man. And to understand all this, let's first have a niggun, and then we'll try to understand all this, the dot and the line and the created Adam Kadmon. You have a niggun for us, Mendel? Mendel, you're muted, by the way.
I know.
Oh, you're demutified.
You would appreciate it. I have a nigga for you.
That's here.
Wait, where's Lake Smoker?
What happened to Lave?
He's smoking.
We need a guitarist. You play guitar. Yeah.
Wait,
That's all right. Gideon will take over.
I have an idea. Give me Labe's guitar. Give me Labe's guitar. Okay, here we go. We'll figure this out. Give me the blue.
All right, I'm gonna. While you're working on it. Oh wait, there's Fee. All right,
Here we go. We're good.
we're good. Okay, hit it.
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Catch a tune.
You play guitar?
I'll tell you, Mendel, that's the way to pick up the slack.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
So, should I continue with this explanation or just do it next time? So far, we found out that before the contraction of the light, there were 4 levels: Hashem alone, and then Hashem's desire to connect outside, which is accomplished through wanting to do good by being the king. But it's impossible to be the king if there's an infinite revelation. So there's a 5th level that we haven't spoken about yet, which is called the Galif Galifu, that Hashem inscribed the letters inside of himself that would later be able to contain the infinite light so the receivers could receive it. And when the infinite light is taken away, all that's left is those inscribed letters. And that's called the Rishimu. That's the impression that's left, is the letters that he inscribed in himself. And those letters is how Hashem measures out in himself in potential. It's only in potential because it's infinite light. It doesn't really exist. He measures in potential through these letters what later will be the containers for the infinite light so the receivers will be able to receive it. And from that impression contains 2 things. It contains an impression of the light before the contraction and the letters that were inscribed before the contraction. And from that impression is going to come down the light called the Kav that's going to describe all the levels in the chain of descent. You want to give us a niggin to go out with, Mendel? You got something good? How about you got a Purim niggin? V'hi b'yimei Achashverosh?
What do we got? What do we got? What do we got?
Knock, knock, knock.
What do we know?
On the red man's door.
Shemmy, 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 shemmy,
Yeah.
hey! Shemmy, 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 again, hey! Shemmy, 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 hey! Me, shemmy, hey! Shemmy, 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 hey! Me, shemmy,
Marvin. Okay, with no further ado, I'm going to take us out. Gezintahait, 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 my friend. Remember, kids, Gezintahait.